coming out on this Wednesday afternoon. I appreciate you guys choosing Southern Avenue. I'm Mrs. Moss, the principal of the wonderful Southern Avenue Charter Elementary School. I also have Mr. Evans, he's the director of IT here. We have Ms. Tina Smith as the instructional facilitator and Title I coordinator and ELA science coach, right? Okay. And all things ESSER. Then we also have the wonderful ELA teacher here for 3rd grade, Ms. Bryant. I know you guys have met her via Class JoJo or some type of communication because she's always sending information out. And then the one and only, the visionary for this great school is our founder and executive administrator, Mrs. Elise Evans. I think I've addressed it. All right, so you guys are here to talk about literacy, or I'm going to talk to you guys about, I want it to be a conversation, but it is really, really important. How many of you have heard of this legislation? You've heard about it? Tell me what you know about it. You mind sharing?
I know.
Okay.
That's where all 3rd graders must pass a certain portion or the reading comprehension in order to be moved forward to 4th grade.
Right, in what state?
What state?
I
I know it has been implemented in Mississippi, but I think it's newly implemented in state.
So they've passed this law. It's been in conversation. It's been on the legislation floor and through several committees or a couple of committees. But it actually was passed last school year. And so it impacts you guys as 3rd graders. That's all of you guys, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about literacy and legislation and how that impacts you guys. So the session goal, that's you guys, the participants, will ensure scholars are actively attending all classes and prepared daily for instruction. Participants will be able to see how the Tennessee legislation will impact their scholars, promotion or retention. And by the end of this session, participants will be able to implement reading fluency practices to improve his or her child's academic outcomes, okay? So these are the literacy expectations. So kindergarten through 2nd grade, scholars were learning to read, right? You will probably hear them go, oh, that's called sounding out words and things of that nature. Or they had their sight words where they just had to know them, right? You couldn't sound out words like the. You wouldn't say E. They just knew when they saw THE, they knew word attack skills, that's the or the. They knew when they saw the words like, that was another sight word. They knew, right? They were learning how to read. When you become a 3rd grader, you're now reading to learn. Everybody say, reading to learn. Reading to learn. So now you may say, oh my God, all this homework, all this classwork that Ms. Bryant is giving them, it's just too much, because when they were in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, their passages were much shorter. They had these beautiful illustrations, they had these pictures. So even if I couldn't read independently, I had the pictures to aid my reading, right? All that's taken away. It's good and gone. They may have a small photograph. They may have some type of map or some type of illustration. What is it called?
A diagram.
A diagram. So what we call
A chart.
yeah, they may have an anchor chart in there. So it might have some type of textual evidence and things of that nature to help them to aid the reading, but most of it is generally passage reading, okay? All right, also, scholars should have a reading stamina and fluency. Everybody say 100.
100.
8 words.
8 words.
Per minute. So entering into 3rd grade, they should be able to read 108 words per minute. Fluently. Not telling me, now, you know, our kids, when they hear fluently read or they have to be able to do it in 1 minute, this is how they read. Beginning with the 2022-2023 school year, a student in the 3rd grade. No, we're not saying quite like that. But we're talking about reading with accuracy, reading with expression, reading with fluency, so you can retain what you've read, okay? So, how does that impact you guys? What does that mean? Well, how can you help them?
With reading skills at home.
Right, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about it. I love the engagement, y'all. So I might stop and end this. All right, so scholars should be able to use context clues and prior knowledge to identify. Everybody say tier 2.
Tier 2.
Tier 2.
Tier 2.
vocabulary. So tier 2 vocabulary to this scholar means multiple meaning words. What does it mean?
Multiple meaning words.
So they may see the word seller, right? So what's one way we use the word seller? It's like a basement, right? Right? All right. And what's another way we use seller? Okay, a seller that sells things, but if we're talking about seller, C-E-L-L-A-R, we can say that a seller is like a basement or some type like that. Then you said the seller, S-A-L-E-R. So they have to know multiple meaning words, but they have to be spelled the same way. Okay, so you remember how we used to use this thing called a dictionary? It was real hard and had those guided words at the top, and then we can flip them pages and TCAP don't want them to do that. They can't use that. What TCAP wants them to do is everybody say context clues.
Context clues.
So they have to use their context clues to see which definition, because it's going to give them both definitions in the answer choice. They have to know which one applies to that text. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what we're looking at. So everybody say they went from learning to read to reading to learn. All right. So then they have to do tier 2 vocabulary. What else?
Tier 2 vocabulary.
And tier 2 vocabulary is multiple meaning words. All right. And then they also have to build their reading stamina, which means they have to be able to read 108 words per minute. Not speed read, but just read. Okay, a nice steady pace. How many of you guys, your children have came home and told you, oh, on Monday we took a reading fluency passage test with my homeroom teacher and I read this many words per minute? Okay, every Monday. It happens on Monday, right? Miss Smith?
Yes.
It happens on Monday?
Yes.
So every Monday when you pick them up in the car, just be like, hey, Deasia, how many words you read today, girl? Hey, Nicholas, how many words did you read today? Hey, Major, how many words did you read today? Just ask them on Mondays how many words did they read, and that way they'll know that you're paying attention and know what's going on. Yes?
So how do I make that quiet? Do I time them?
I'm going to tell you in just a minute. But that's a great question. But if I don't answer the question, like, hey, you told me you was going to answer the question. But it's in the packet, I promise you, okay? All right, so this is what SACS is committed to. And this is what we already have implemented in our school. We have a 75-minute uninterrupted ELA instruction. I've introduced Ms. Bryan to you. Ms. Bryan will give me the nicest stank eye if I come in her classroom to bother her, because what is she trying to do? She's trying to teach you guys as babies, okay? So that's why we say, hey, make an appointment during her schedule, planning time, because when she's in the classroom, she's teaching. She's doing what? Teaching. All right, and then also, we have implemented in the schedule, what's your time for tutoring? The third grade. 2:30. So, hey, Ms. Miles, I'm going to check my child out at 1:30. They're missing tutoring because tutoring begins at what time for third grade? 2 to 2:30. Come on in. I'm used to people coming in. Come on in. That's what I want y'all to do. All right. So from 2 to 2:30, they're receiving some type of ELA tutoring. So if you schedule doctor's appointments and things of that nature, please try to make it after 2:30. I understand life happens. Hey, I have a 15-year-old that just broke his ankle. We're going to physical therapy. Y'all didn't ask me all that, but I understand that life happens. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to be like, no, Mom, Dad, you can't have your child. But I do want you to be cognitive that at 2:30, from 2 to 2:30, they are in some type of tutoring or ELA. All right, and then we talked about the tier 1. Tier 1 means everybody's on grade level. Let's say everybody's on grade level.
Everybody's on grade level.
So we might have parents that say, hey, I know my child is having difficulty reading. I know my child is having difficulty. They can fluently read. They can fluently read, meaning they know what they're reading about, or they know what they're reading. But then when I ask them those specific questions, like who are the characters, they can tell me the characters, right? They can recall that information. But then when I say, well, how did the characters' thoughts and feelings change from the beginning of the story to the end? They're like, wait a minute, what? Pause. That's what they're expecting third graders to be able to do. So she, being Ms. Bryant, is going to provide that grade level work and practice But then she's also going to provide, along with her team of teachers, they're also going to provide 30 minutes of tutoring for them at the end of each day from 2 to 2:30, meeting them where they are. So then a student may say, hey, what type of tutoring did you get today? They're like, oh, I didn't do any tutoring, I was on the computer. Relax. Relax. The computer is good. We have 2 computer-based programs. Everybody write it down. IXL.com. Yes. And iReady.com.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
iReady, can it be done at home?
Yes.
There you go.
I said can too. Both can. Both
Yes. Both can be done at home. But Ms. Moss, I don't have a computer. Raise your hand if you got a cell phone. They can use the cell phone. IXL.com. Yeah, it's on the packet. And then iReady.com.
Parents, I will make sure I send this information home like they already.
Separate Southern Avenue from any other charter school, from any other district ran school. We have a program called Popcorn Reading. Everybody say popcorn reading. So everybody, not just your 3rd graders, everybody from kindergarten through 5th grade, during a select time every morning, they're reading a novel. London, what novel are you reading this month?
We're reading Winn-Dixie.
Winn-Dixie. All right, so you may say, hey, Miss Moss, that's a 4th grade level book. It is if you're independently reading it. But London, who do you read with every day when you're reading Winn-Dixie? They read with their teachers. So this is helping them see vocabulary words, see words that they may struggle with. We anticipate those struggles so where we can help them understand and comprehend. Everybody say it's a low stakes reading program. So when you see Mrs. Moss, well, I try to catch them next door. But when you hear, how many of you guys, don't raise your hands, don't tell on yourself, but you've received a phone call from Miss Moss or Miss Warren or Miss Jordan because your child has either been absent, tardy, or picked up too many times early. Just think about it, don't raise your hand, just raise your hand mentally. And we're calling you because from 8:05-ish, they are in popcorn reading. This is where they are getting 15 minutes of uninterrupted fluency reading practice. The teacher is not asking them to take a test on it. It's just, again, oral reading. It's what type of reading? Oral reading. Now, well, Ms. Moss, my child struggles reading, and I really don't want them to feel embarrassed. So, this is how we start out with popcorn reading. I would say Tennessee Code, and then you would echo, and I would say Tennessee Code, and you would echo and say, but you would have the print in front of you, okay? And you're using your pointing finger. And guess what? Miss Bryant, Miss McDaniel, or Miss Hicks may say, hey, we're gonna reread chapter 4. Because the teacher is making mental observations saying, okay, my kids are reading, but they're really struggling with some words in chapter 4. We're not just gonna keep moving. That's why we stay with the same book for 1 month. How long do we stay with that book? 1 month. All right, so that's our popcorn reading program.
Please, real quick.
Sure.
Is there a way to find out what book you're reading?
Have a conversation with your child. Just ask them, what book are you reading this month? She'll let you know via Class Dojo.
Do you all choose the book monthly, or is it your?
We have our books planned out for the 10 months. She don't know.
And that's my question. Can I get a list of books for the next 10 months?
Can you take minutes for me?
So that I can do that at home?
Yeah.
Instead of just 15 minutes.
Okay.
You but also one of our other questions is are these tier 2 vocabulary words in that reading program?
The popcorn reading?
Yeah.
No, remember that's low stakes. So in popcorn reading, we're just working on fluency.
Okay.
We're building their reading stamina. We're trying to get them engaged into reading. So that's not when they'll see tier 2 vocabulary. They'll see tier 2 vocabulary in what she sends home. I think you post the vocabulary words, correct? A CKLA newsletter, does that come home still?
On Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays, that CKLA vocabulary, it should have like a little blurb or a summary telling you what the kids are doing for that week. And then you also post it on Class Dojo, right? Okay. All right.
Not today, though.
Yeah. She been in meetings all day, y'all. Outside of her teacher. All right. So then everybody say RTI squared. So your kiddos may say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, today I worked with Miss Banks, or I worked with Miss Harris, or I worked with Miss Dixon, or I worked with Miss Tate, or I worked with Miss Young. Don't be alarmed. What is happening if they fall in tier 2 or tier 3? Everybody say tier 2? Tier 2. I'm getting confused with, the state couldn't think of any more words than but tier, okay? So it's not my fault. But tier 2 vocabulary that's in a shelf by itself, okay? We're gonna put that box on that shelf and leave it there. Now we're talking about RTI. So RTI, tier 1 means everybody's on grade level. No one ever in life should say, hey, I was pulled out of Miss Bryant's tier 1 instruction. Unless it's for behavior, I'm just gonna be honest with you, okay? But that we are keeping them in Miss Bryant's class and we're keeping them in their math classes, okay? Now, when you hear that they're being pulled to work with someone else, they may be tier 2 or tier 3. So here's what tier 2 RTI means. Tier 2 RTI means that they are 1 grade level behind. We don't magically pick the kids and say, you know what, you look like you might be tier 2. We collect data. And that data begins with it begins with iReady diagnostic testing as well as Easy CBM diagnostic testing. So we have 2 forms of data. Okay? Well, Mrs. Miles, what does the diagnostic test on? Reading fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and writing. Last year was the first year they did writing. Okay? What else, London? Word reading. Don't y'all have to read so many words too? They have to read so many words. So yes, word reading too. Okay? Easy CBM measures the same thing. Easy CBM is so kind and already is so great. They tell us what instructional level that child is on. And so if they are performing below 3rd grade, they are now in intervention. However, if they are 2nd grade, maybe the 9th month, they are receiving that tutoring inside the classroom. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. The weekly fluency probes. So you have this packet. Can you guys go here for me? So you were asking, how can you help your children at home with building the reading stamina? Just set your timer for 1 minute. For how many minutes? 1 minute. And we read from left to right. Most of our kids, if they're not coming from the K2 building, some of our kids tend to read up, down, but what we want them to do is read left to right. And so you're going to set the timer. You're going to say you have 1 minute to read as many words as you can. Go. And they'll go from left to right. And when your timer goes off, you circle where they stop. If they did not read a word correctly while they're reading, you put an X over it. I would say do it in pencil so you can use this over and over again. Okay? So I gave you 2 probes here. Okay? If they do this easy peasy lemon squeezy and they're able to read more than half this list in that 1 minute, they're ready to move to passage reading. So let's go to the 3rd page. So generally, they are familiar with it, and I know some of my students will tell you, my teacher don't do it like that. It's okay. It's okay. But what you'll do is give them that same minute. You'll say, hey, now we're going to read passage reading fluency. And you have 1 minute to read as many words as you can. If they get stuck on a word, so if a student is saying, instead of them saying Sarah, they say Susie, you'll put an X over it because that's not the correct word, right? And if they said lived instead of love, you'll put an X over it. But if they get to the word, let's see, let's go to the 2nd line, the 5th word. If they are struggling with saying country and they're like, go ahead and give them that word and then just put an X through it because you had to give it to them. All right, but what I always tell parents, don't put that much pressure on them first. Let them read, just fluently practice this, and you can say at home, hey, in a couple of days, I'm gonna quiz you on this with the 1 minute fluency pros, okay? Because we do, when we give them the fluency practice, they do read it multiple times. Now when TCAP come, y'all know it's a cold read. It's fresh before them. But the more they read, the better, okay? All right. Everybody say, annotate. Ooh, I get on Miss Bryan. Don't you take up no work from them scholars if they don't show your thinking on their paper. You know, when we went to school, and maybe I'm dating myself, but when I went to school, I just gave my answer, and my answer was my answer, right? My teacher didn't say, well, how do you know that's the correct answer? She had that grading key. She had that easy grader that showed her if I missed 2, this was my grade, and all that beautiful stuff. No. We grade for everybody say we grade for their thinking, and we grade for their answer. So when they annotate, let me pick on Krishan, who is now a 4th grader. Krishan, what is annotation? Loud and proud college voice.
Annotation is where you found your answer.
That's it. That's all they're doing. They're going back in their passage to show where they found their answer. Mom, if you don't mind me picking on you, I think this is your last baby, right? No? I know, but I'm saying the 3rd grade. This is your, okay. So you've been through this annotation process with us, right? For some years now, right? And she, if I can brag on her, 2 of her kiddos are part of our, well, 1 has left, was part of our honor society. And that's one of the biggest things is they have to have the grades to be part of the honor society. They have to annotate those passages, okay? Can't stress that enough. So when they're doing homework and they say, hey, I'm done, just say, hey, show me where you underline where you found your answer to question 1. And they should have it underlined, question 1 next to it. Hey, show me where you found your answer to question 16. They should have it underlined, question number 16. What are some other steps?
If their homework involves multiple choice, we ask that they eliminate 2 answer choices. Okay? And that's because we want to give them a 50% chance versus a 25% chance of getting that question correct. So I don't know how you all are, but I would rather have a 50% chance of getting correct versus a 25% chance. So we ask that they eliminate answer choices that make absolutely no sense to answer that question. All right? And the other thing that we ask them to do is not just annotate that passage where they found their answer, but also annotate the question. But because we found that scholars, when the question is asked to them, they don't always know what they're looking for. So what they do is they go and circle key words within their question so that they can know exactly what their question is.
And their homework should not take all night because TCAP is tough. So the passage that she's giving them, they are in 3rd grade. They're home the 2nd. That's next week, y'all.
October 3rd to the 2nd.
The 7th. October the 3rd through October the 7th. Interim assessments. That is standards aligned testing. So what happens in ELA math and science? If they went here last year, they know the drill. Monday is writing from an ELA passage. Tuesday is reading again with comprehension questions. Wednesday is math part 1. Thursday is math part 2. And then Friday is science. So we need them here. You should be getting homework according to how they laid out their homework week. Not every subject every night because we don't want to overwhelm the kids. You should in ELA and math. Yeah, ELA and math. Science, not as much. Because they're doing really, our kids are performing really, really high in science, and science is more of a hands-on. Reach out to her teacher. Okay. Okay. I'll make sure she reaches out. for is called TCAP. What's our show we're getting ready for? TCAP. TCAP. So we have invested in a very great, I love the curriculum. It's called CKLA. It's Core Knowledge Language Arts. Does the curriculum have some work? Yes. But again, this shows the rigorous grade level reading. TDQs are text dependent questions. They already have the writing and grammar, and this one they'll see that tier 2 vocabulary in their curriculum. And then our computer-based intervention is IXL and iReady. And then we already talked about tests and assessments. They're timed. That's the biggest thing. Some of our kids can perform well if they're given the whole day, but they are not allowed to have the whole day. Okay, and I'll tell you more about the times there.
I read and I excel. How do we know what section they really should be working in? 'Cause I've seen my baby, sometimes she'll work on a section, then she'll get tired and she'll say, it's kind of hard, and she'll pick something else that she knows how to do. So how do we know?
If
where
she
look
gets
for the
to-
sections they're supposed to be in?
So at IXL, if she gets to 90% before 10 minutes, the skill is too easy for her.
Okay.
And then it already puts them where they should be, and it's already going to take them.
Changes.
Yeah.
And in IXL, I assign work. So what I assign will be highlighted in yellow. They can go to anything else that's not highlighted true. But if she's working in that yellow, that means that when she's finished and she's completed, her grade's gonna come to me. What she missed, what she needs to work on. But they can jump around, but just make sure that they are staying on that yellow, because once they master their skill or their standard, it will give them like a little gold medal at the end to let them,
I
Is
think
it?
that
Yeah.
she likes to go medal, but I will say, I have called her several times.
Yeah, they can.
Make sure she's on 3rd grade though, because that's another thing.
I've seen it. Now, some things I know, when I look at it, and some things is like.
No, I'm saying it'll say 3rd grade
Yeah.
for them.
But they'll try to
But
jump
I've seen
around.
also, to be honest, I've seen her get to a point where she just clicks without reading. She'll just click to get there.
And if it's hard, they can't click out, but they need to keep going.
And IXL and iReady lets the administrative team and the teacher know how much time they spent on a question. So if we see like, hey, they did a skill in 20 minutes, that generally should have taken them a little bit longer, we know, hey, something up with that, and we can reassign it to them at any time.
And then I read it, it'll send you a red flag.
Yeah,
Then who?
The
the
teacher.
teacher,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Okay. I was in the 3rd grade, the yellow, and I remember 90%.
If she does it like really quickly. All right, so this is what you all came out here for. The Tennessee legislation, beginning with the 22-23 school year, a student in 3rd grade shall not be promoted to the next grade level unless the student is determined to be proficient in English language arts based on the student's achieving performance level rating on track or mastered on the ELA portion of the student's most recent Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program test. And I said, well, this law just goes out the window, because I'm working with the state this summer and I've worked with Pearson, and they have already changed the language where it has on track. It now says meets expectations. So write that down. Meets expectations.
It's over with.
What?
Oh,
I just realized I need something. Meets expectations or exceeds expectations. So that's the language of Pearson's TCAP 10 Ready. So, how many of you guys have woke up and had a bad morning? Right? How many of you guys have woke up and just really not feel like going to wherever your next destination is? Whether it's school, whether it's work, whether it's just around the house, and you just realize them walls closing in on you. Hey, right? So I had a real issue with this law, and I'm not gonna stay on my soapbox too long, because not everybody is a great test taker. One, we already know Oh, he's recording me, so I'm not gonna say
We
too much.
understand.
There we go. And I requested the recording to keep me on track. But we're gonna work
I
with
think we all understood it.
Yeah, we're gonna work with them, okay? It's gonna take all of us to get them meet expectations or exceed expectations, okay? Share it with your community of parents. You guys huddle and talk, and if you don't, just share it on a Facebook post like, hey, I just came from this meeting, making sure everybody in my friend group knows that this is law. Because when you think about it, yes, I know these were the kindergartners, this group here, and these are the kindergartners where school stopped March of 2020. These are the same group of first graders that they either chose virtual or in person. And then they're the same group last year where they all came back in, but it was such a learning loss there. So now you're going to tell me that now if they're not on grade level by third grade, that they can retain from one piece of data. Okay? Let that sink in. I'll give you a minute.
So I had a quick question on that.
Sure.
With like ACT or, SAT, there are a lot of practice sites out there where you can go on and do like an electronic run through, and of course it's something that you can pay for. Are there any that we know of that could be used to prep them for the TCAP?
We do that in class every day. The test that the reading passages that they see is the same, it's not the same reading passage, but lengthwise, word-wise, vocabulary choice-wise, it's the same. The question part A, part B question, they see those every Friday on assessment day. They see it in do nouns, they see it throughout class. So they seeing it on a constant basis. It's not the same test, but it's the same test. And we're teaching the strategies, and that's what it is. We're teaching those test-taking strategies for them to use, for whether they see a long passage or a short passage. As long as they use those strategies, they will be fine. Yes.
So here's,
yes, ma'am.
So I don't know if she's doing well, not doing well. Some questions I had that was on the list, questions you answered today,
So here's, I'm gonna be parent to parent talking. The principal head is now on. So the law, as all things, the law is there, right? But we haven't caught up to the law. We've changed the vendors. When I say we, I'm talking about the state of Tennessee. So what we're even using is still Questar. We don't use Questar anymore. We're with Pearson. That's our vendor for testing. Pearson has not released any information to the states for us to use for practice tests. But our executive administrator will tell you, every chance I get to go to Nashville or to participate in some type of TCAP training, I'm going up that road so I can bring it back to my black and brown children so we can have an advantage of it. Okay, so if I have conversations with the teachers like, hey, I just got out of this training, this is what is expected of the students to do. This is what we thought the students were expected to do, but this is how, like, I'm on that committee that's grading tests. I'm on that committee that's looking at questions and probes and saying, hey, let's toss this one because it's not standards aligned. Hey, let's keep this. I'm not the sole voice in the room, but I am amongst my colleagues being the voice for our community, okay? I do try to get some changes made, but they slow. Yes.
So, understanding the laws of the law is, have they factored or has it been put on the table to understand that children who may not test well but exceed well in the classroom, are they bringing that balance to it, or is it just the law?
It sound like it.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I'm asking so many questions about
And I would encourage you parents, go ahead, yes ma'am.
I want to tell them about the lady from Mississippi that called me last summer.
Sure.
I happened to pick up the phone in my office, and she told me what her name was, and she was the parent of a daughter, third grade student, A.B. student, perfect attendance and all. But she couldn't pass the test. Right across the state line. I said, have you gone to the summer program? She said, yes. She's gone to the summer program. She still cannot pass the test. they were going to retain her. We tried to figure everything we could. We couldn't bring her here, even if she moved to Tennessee, because they would have tracked her, and we would have been in trouble. But they are serious about this. Now, we're gonna do whatever Mrs. Matt Moss is telling you the truth. She is very involved on the testing standards in Nashville. She went last summer, and I was happy that she did that. But these people are through Mrs. Moss and through your teachers, your children's teachers. They are getting the material that was written by the testers. You follow what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
ma'am.
So, tell you, these teachers and principals working hard for your children. They really are. She wanted you to have the information she went over first because it's all of us. It's the triangle, the child, you and us. So help them when they send material home. If you don't understand it, phone, email, dojo, whatever. Okay? We'll help in any way we possibly can. But I'm telling you, if they come up with some other suggestions like summer program or adding other things, we're gonna be in on it.
We're part of that.
We're gonna be a part of it.
Let me ask her a question a different way. We know the answer to that. How about if they don't have the grades, but they pass the test? Are they promoted
They go to pro-
It is at the school's discretion.
in that case?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh,
It's at the school's discretion.
Okay.
If they pass, if they're considered proficient.
I've known some kids
Yeah.
over the years when I was in school that would fly past the standardized test, but they wouldn't try and do anything in school, and you wonder how did they get there?
It's at the school's discretion.
Okay.
All right, so when we talk about, any more questions for the floor, the betterment of the group? Okay.
You guys are better than us.
Huh?
You're better than us, we're taking it.
Okay, all right, third grade TCAP information. So I'm giving you this information. They don't take TCAP until April, but we're starting now, and I hate that our kids, I'm not gonna say I hate, because the test is not all bad, but I do also know, me being a person that don't test well, because I have my own testing anxiety, because once I thought I graduated in my master program and my master's plus program, I was done with tests, but they said, no, you still gotta take tests to keep going. And so I do get anxiety, so I can only imagine how my 8, 9, and 10-year-olds feel. So I wanna front load y'all with as much information. At any time, go ahead and write my number down, 901-799-2396. You can text me, because I know questions are gonna come up after this session. And so I welcome that. 799-2396. 799-2396. Yes. Yeah, you can call or text. I would prefer you to text because I'm in meetings a lot of time and I can't answer my phone. All right, so EOA, they're hitting them in the mouth. They have 4 subparts. They have 1 entire week. How many of you guys remember when we took TCAP? It was everything in 1 week, maybe 3 days. Let's be honest. When I came around, it was 3 days. 1 day for ELA, 1 day for math, and science and social studies was together. All right? No, they want who? That's 8 years old tested for 1 week just on ELA. Our babies. They're our babies. Okay. So the first day is writing. That's 80 minutes. The second day, they do subpart 2 and subpart 3 together, and that's reading comprehension. They'll have anywhere from 2 to 3 passages. And then the third day is subpart 4, and that's 30 minutes. Here's a little secret. Even though they have the allotted time, if the scholar says, I need more time, the state said we can get them more time, but we can't give them all day.
But they have to ask.
They have to ask. We can, as a teacher, see that that child needs more time, but that child has to say, Miss Bryant, I need more time.
And that, and this is something they silly to even ask, but I'm gonna ask it. One child asking for more time. but
Only
not-
that child gets the more time. If Miss Bryant asks for more time, all the rest of us have to turn in our test. Unless we be like, oh, okay, I need that time too.
Yeah, I think they have to be.
Yeah, that's why we in this meeting. All right? And then they have math. They take 2 days of math. It's no calculator for the first day because that's fluency. They have to know their numbers, base 10s, and they understanding that. And then on day 2, they take subpart 2 and subpart 3. They get to use a calculator, but when I have the TCAP meeting, you'll see that that calculator serves no purpose. We are now introducing them to calculators. Calculators have already been issued to them. So we're showing the scholars how to use the calculators for estimation and things of that nature, okay? And then science is the same week as math, and it's just for 50 minutes, multiple choice, and we have Paul's social studies. They get the social studies integration in CKLA, along with some of the science integration. Okay? Yes.
Are those just regular basic calculators?
Yes, they cannot use scientific calculators or any type of graphic calculators. It's just a basic calculator. When I was a classroom teacher, I gave them a scientific calculator. I showed my kids how to put them fractions in there to help them divide and find that equipment. You know, when we learn how to master the test, then they up there in Nashville be like, they moving too fast. They done found out our secret. So let's put a little. All right. So the writing is important. Everybody say one paragraph.
One paragraph.
That's all they gotta write. One paragraph. To us, that seems like, oh my God, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But in that one paragraph, they have to use grade level appropriate vocabulary. I always tell the teachers, make sure they flip the question. How does the narrator feel? The narrator feels X, Y, and Z. How does the setting change in the story? The setting changes in the story, so make sure they flip the question. Flip the question. Again, I worked this summer. They pulled us in this summer back to Nashville. The summer before last, we were all on virtual. We was looking at the probes and the question. When we say probes, we're talking about the text questions or the test questions. So just make sure they're flipping that question, and everybody say, make sure they stay on topic. Say that.
Stay on topic.
Because kids will tell us about how they day been. They be like, look, Miss Moss, I did a paragraph, and they did. And I can't say like, ooh, that's not what they're asking you. So just make sure they stay on topic. All right, subpart 2, they have one passage, 4 to 10 questions, then they have another passage. Then subpart 3, they have one passage on subpart 2. Subpart 3 and 4, they have 2 passages. So they have to be able to read 2 passages in 40 and 30 minutes. Okay? So this is why we're saying build that reading stamina, because when they get here and here, see how that time got short? Same amount of questions, 4 to 10, same number of passages, but the time got shorter by 10 minutes.
What are editing on the subpart 3?
So they'll give them a paragraph and they got to find all the mistakes. There may be vocabulary, it may be spelling, it may be grammar, like with commas, punctuation, uppercase, lowercase with proper nouns. That's what the editing task is. Contractions, conjunctions, all that.
And I'm assuming it's multiple choice.
We're gonna talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Oh, well, it said at the very top of it. I saw that and clicked away.
So the ELA item types. Everybody say multiple choice. One answer. Multiple select.
Right.
2 or more answers. So for 3rd grade, they got it easy peasy on that part because it would literally say, choose 3 answers. But our kids are so programmed to choosing how many answers. So just make sure, that's why she was saying dissect or annotate the questions. Annotate the questions so they can make sure, okay, if it's saying 3 answers, I have 3 bubbles on my paper. All right? So if they have 5 or more answer choices, they know, like this one, this is what we call a multiple select. 5 or more, you see where it's in bold, it says select 2. Okay? And then the last and final one, we said multiple choice, we said multiple select. We now have part A and part B. So the part A and part B, when 10 Ready, it's still called TCAP, but when 10 Ready came, they was like, oh, if they get one of those wrong, the whole thing is wrong. So now what they're saying is they don't get the full credit, but they don't get everything wrong. So whenever they see part A and part B, this is how I always tell them to remember part A and part B. Part A is where you have to explicitly know, like be able to tell the correct definition or tell what the text is saying, and this is supporting evidence. This is my answer, this is my supporting evidence. Answer, part A, I always tell them when I do Saturday school, part A means your answer, part B is your evidence, okay? All right. We're going to talk about that today. Not today, though, because we're working on it. That's this 2nd semester. But you'll know before the end of 1st semester. All right. Talk a little bit about math and science grades. Well, they only have multiple choice, multiple select. So they only have that when it comes to math. And then in science, they only have multiple choice. They don't have to worry about the multiple select, okay? All right. So let's talk about the home and school partnership. Teachers are committed to providing rigorous and engaging instruction. The gradual release of responsibility, that is a academic or education jargon, but I wanted to unpack that for you guys. So never should your child come home and say, my teacher did all the talking like how Ms. Moss is doing, right? They should be able to come home and say, hey, Ms. Bryant did this. Then we worked with a partner on this. Then we independently did this. Does that make sense? So that's the gradual release of responsibility. I forgot something. So let me go back over it. The teacher does the direct modeling. Then the teacher and the students work together. Then the student and the student works together. And then the student works independently. So, again, text it felt a little, just on the, it teetered just a little bit on maybe harassment, but hey, we got you in there. but I do what I gotta do.
You're welcome.
I wasn't gonna make it. I just wasn't. It was at the end of my day. I had a lot left to do. I got so many. I'm usually up here to hear, but today I was like, I don't think is it really that important?
Yes.
Because the first 5 messages that said it was urgent didn't.
I got so many. I was like, oh, it's gotta be urgent.
Right. So I appreciate you doing this. Again, ask that you share it amongst your community. I believe sharing is caring, really, especially when it comes to our kids, our demographic in which we serve. All I ask and plead with you, I'm not asking you if they've been at school for 6.5 hours. I'm not asking you to make them come home and be in school again. But if they are here all day, if they're here on time, I promise you, we're going to try our best to get them where they need to be. And also, if we call y'all, answer. Okay? Because we're calling for something. And it could be, hey, during ELA class, this student totally checks out. And maybe, you know how it was when we went to school. If I saw my mama coming down the hallway, baby, I was straight A student all of a sudden. I'm not talking to any of my friends. Friends, I don't have friends. My mom has already told me not to trust y'all because, so when we're calling, we need that support, okay? So just be mindful of that. Just read the newsletters. Always ask your kids when they're reading those questions, who is the story about? Where does the story take place? what was the plot? The plot is the beginning, middle, and end. What was the problem? What was the conflict? What was the resolution? How was the problem solved? When did they solve the problem? What is the theme of the text? And here's the biggest one of all for third graders. What is the main idea? You remember how when we went to school, our teacher told us to read the first sentence in the paragraph and that showed main idea? They have to interpret the main idea. So always ask them, what's the main idea? What's the theme? Like, what's the moral of the story? And then you can also ask them, why was this text important? What was your big takeaway from it? And then again, annotate and then use that technology of iExcel and iReady. Do you use ReadWorks?
Not a lot. I did.
Okay.
I did.
Pause. Great. So she don't use ReadWorks. Guess who can use ReadWorks? You guys. Read, R-E-A-D, works, WORKS.org. Again, I'm not asking you to make them leave school to go to school, but if you're just bored with life and you want your child to succeed, I know all of us are here because we want our children to succeed, because that's why you're here. But I'm just saying, if you have time, like when we have fall break, and you're like, hey, before you get on that game, go on ReadWorks. Before you go outside and play, iExcel. You know, okay?
And that's gonna be my question. What is because I know how
A healthy balance.
Yes, because I'm told sometimes, I feel like I feel at school. I'll stay on it tonight. I don't care, you know.
I maximize my travel time because I was that parent too, and my kids have to tell me, Mom, you're not our teacher. And I'm like, but I'm your parent / educator. I'm your advocate, and I know what it takes. So I maximize my travel time, and what I mean by that is whenever we got in the car, I had something in there that was math fluency, some type of reading fluency. We already know most of our kids have some type of tablet or some type of digital gadget. That was always in the car. And just again, when we're going to Walmart, practice, instead of listening to the radio, this is what we're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
And then if you're saying, I mean, I don't want to tell you how to parent, but I would say maybe the most after she does homework, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. That's a healthy balance.
I already did the car thing.
Okay.
We started doing like math and broken.
Yeah.
Like you want cookies, then do some multiplication.
Right.
Put those cookies.
Right, there you go. Seriously, make it real world so they can see this is why I need multiplication. All right.
Can you spell that ReadWorks?
WORKS.org. It's all one word. All one word. Yes.
You don't need it.
You'll have to sign up, but it's free. It's free. You don't have to tell them that you're a parent. You can be a teacher because you are. You're teaching them. There you go. Because you don't use it, correct?
I like it.
Okay. All right.
Well, you got coach behind me, so I have to. He's down there first.
Okay, so you got all this information. You're nervous, or you're not even nervous. You're just wondering. You're anxious. So now I'm going to show you how to read your 10 rated reports. This is what a 10 rated report looks like. Your scholars, your child, my students should be able to tell you guys they never want to be level 2 or level 1, but life happens. Okay, so what they want them to be is in level 3 or level 4. That means they're on grade level. This will show them what the school did. This will show them how Memphis Shelby County Schools, our district did, and this will show them how the state did. All right, and this just shows your scores in here. To score at a level 1, you have to score below a 250. To be at a level 2, which is approaches 251 to 300. To be at a level 3, these are old numbers, so I'm not going to even project it out. They upped it a little bit. All right. So again, instead of it saying master, who can tell me, what would it say? Exceeds expectations. Here it'll say exceeds expectations. Instead of on track, it'll say what? Meets expectations, and then approaching and below will continue to say that. And then it breaks it down even further of how they did for each domain of reading. It's called domain. What is it called?
Domain.
All right, so they'll have reading literature, what we call a fictional piece. That's a made-up story. Then they'll have an informational text. That's a true story. They'll have language, which is grammar. They'll have the writing development, focus and organization, and conventions. And I have went over this rubric with Ms. Bryant. If you want the rubric, you want to send home next Wednesday, we'll send the writing rubric home. Remember, they only have to have a paragraph. Our kids generally score well in conventions. They just, that's just writing. So this is what the report will tell you: the strengths, what your scholar did well, the areas of improvement, and next steps. Again, this is a reminder beginning with the 2022-2023 school year. They have to be on meets expectation or exceeds expectations according to the TCAP, or Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program. I will say the district is working on a Tennessee literacy commitment, but it has not been approved yet by the state. And I don't want to share that information too prematurely with you guys until I know for sure, okay? All right. Where do we go from here? Again, I cannot stress attendance. I can't teach, she can't teach if they're not here. And what I mean by here, I mean physically and mentally here. Communicate with teachers regularly. Check your Class Dojo, Power School, school social media for communications. And when I say social media, I'm even including Robotext, Facebook, Instagram, and the website, and Class Dojo. Ask questions. Anything that's unclear regarding your child's academic progress, I would say go to the teacher first. If the teacher doesn't respond, you can definitely reach out to me. If it's anything pertaining to the meeting today, definitely reach out to me first. I don't mind that. And then at home, I can't stress enough, is IXL.com and reading for 10 minutes. So in your packet, I gave you guys some word reading fluency. I gave you some passage reading fluency. So this right here, this little paragraph or series of paragraphs, this is what the editing task will look like. So don't think, oh, this is what the TCAP reading comprehension will look like. That's false sense of hope.
They'll have those questions at the bottom of what you're saying.
They'll have the question.
Like the paragraph and the paragraph.
This is just practice reading right here. When you get here, this is what the passages will look like when it comes to TCAP. Oh, it's not an editing task. It's just, I don't want you guys to think that these short paragraphs like these, they're front and back to passages. Okay. They'll look like this.
It's lengthy.
It's lengthy.
Like I took when I was at school, it wasn't in third grade.
There you go. We was in junior, probably middle school. Exactly. They want them to leave elementary, go straight to college, and I'm not mad at it, but I don't give them a scholarship. That's what I'm saying, for real. So these are some of the questions here that you guys can talk about verbally. What I noticed with our scholars is they're good about giving verbal answers. They can talk my ear off like I talked y'all ear off today. But when it comes to this part, this is where they freeze. When they have to independently work and do the questions on their own. No, the discussion questions are just to help you guys have conversations. You can use it, you don't have to use them. And then these questions are what they'll see on the test. Okay? Then, don't tell nobody, but I snuck one in there. Shh. This is what the writing will look like. This is an actual example of a writing prompt for them.
So are they reading?
And then,
Are these text independent questions? Are they reading text dependent? Are they reading it on their own, or is it part of
we don't read it all to them. That's why when we talk about that practice performance. So next week they're gonna but on Fridays you don't read to
I don't read to them at all. At all. 825, different emotions, you know, knowing to stop when you see a period, or you see exclamation, you know, it's excitement and a question, And parents, if you need anything, just reach out. I'm here. I have a good coach. I have a good principal. I know sometimes y'all get these phone calls from me, but you know, they're the best phone calls. But I'm here. If you need extra work, I ain't gonna charge like my classroom is full of anchor charts. If you go down there now, that's all you see, because I leave those resources up. So when I do give them their independent work, they have things to look around, resources to see, versus steady raising their hand. Miss Brown, I don't know. Because when they say I don't know, I still don't answer them. You can ask Miss Smith, I'll point. Because I've already talked.
This is during test time.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I've already talked, so, yeah.
And even though they're seeing the anchor charts now, the state is so kind, they come in and they look in our classrooms, and the district comes in and look in our classroom, and our walls have to be covered. So they won't have that assistant come TK.
Is a multiplication chart and anchor chart?
Yes, they can't have that either.
Any type of, it has to look, our wall has to look like this.
Yeah.
We can't have anything else. And all we can have up on the board is start, stop, time remaining. That's it.
It just means it's a whole lot of work there.
It is, but we're gonna get
But
there.
we're starting early.
No, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I know the anchor charts are now, so, okay.
She also asked a great question about how does the writing, how does spelling factor into scores? So again, I was on that committee. They're asking me to come back in November. If we understand their writing, we give it to them. But if it's a word that's in the passage, they should have went back in their passage. Always tell your kids, go back in your passage. Flip and find. Because you know what? They think they read it, they think they memorize it, and they know. That's why we're forcing them to annotate. So they have no choice but to go back in the passage to find their answer. Okay? Alright. Did I answer all the questions? Go ahead, Drew.
The writing is manually graded, and the rest of it is like computerized.
Possibly. Possibly. Yes, we do sit down and grade. It's a team of 5. This summer we graded 700 plus 5th grade passage answer choices. Yeah. That's all you do, but that's all you do. So, it is, yeah. This is my contact information. This is Ms. Bryant's information. Ms. Bryant, is this you guys' number, the 799-2405? And you can leave anything for any of the 3rd grade teachers.
Like that phone number, voicemail, text message, or anything.
The 799-2405.
Oh, okay.
This is-
3rd grade contact, so.
This goes straight to me. abryant@sacsmemphis.org. I thank you guys so much for coming out. I think that's the end of my presentation. We're in it to win it. We're in it together. Every morning we tell the kids our goal is, let me see if my kiddos in here know, what's our goal to? What's